When actually live? Are you telling me I was waiting on the page it told me to wait on and then I just had to go back? Okay. Fuck's sake. Alright, we're closing the Twitch one. Bye, Twitch. We got it working, guys. Oh yeah, and I remember watching I think it was a YouTube documentary on Xbox. And one of the major things that they admitted to that they fucked up on was the first Xbox controller. What is it called? The Duke, I think is its official title. It's so massive that only people with humongous hands feel comfortable using it. It's like, and they had warning signs because the women that were working there in the industry said, this is a little uncomfortable. And it's like, they massively underestimated that for like the Japanese market in particular, because it's like, dude, the average hand size compared to over here to Japan, you missed the mark a little, dude. Like, don't get me wrong, it's cool for an option. Like, everybody has different hand sizes, but if you're going for the average hand size, comfortable, it's like the controllers we have now. But back then they're like, no, we want one that's the size of a brick, and that if you throw it at someone, it will kill someone. Like, we wanted to guarantee no child would have a choking hazard trying to eat this one. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what? Oh yeah, they tried to correct that shit real soon, like as soon as it launched. Oh my god, you got the Xbox that I wanted. Yeah, I just got the plain black one, and then I got one of those like skin things you could like decorate it. But it was funny because it's like I had the big controller, the Duke, the regular one, and then I had like a baby one.
It's exciting.
It's a fantastic film festival that really gets.
It was just funny looking at the difference.
The heart of downtown New York.
All right, here we go. What the hell are we about to watch?
It's about the vibrance of the culture of New York, and we pull it all together with films, games, immersive experience.
What is this?
We share our narrative.
I'm going in completely blind on this. I have no idea what this is.
There are so many more things that games can be.
Ever since I was a kid, I would play video games 24/7.
Every time I wanted to relax, every time I wanted to step out of the world for a bit.
You know,
Are you talking about the Halo Green Xbox? Your mom sold it for nothing?
Interactive adventure. I want
Then
to
she got
feel
scammed
like I'm part of the
hard.
story.
I am Julian Cordero, and my game is Despelote.
Because it's like the...
Goodbye, Volcano High.
Especially the older consoles, the rare... or like the special designed ones like that, they always go for more. Like, I'm interested in how much it's probably worth.
The Expanse.
Like, oh, let me see.
Welcome.
Welcome to Tribeca Games.
I must have climbed the hill behind the house 100 times. I know every stone.
We're
After
gonna.
that hill,
We're starting with the
there's another.
cuteness.
and then another again.
Emotional
And
cuteness
after
is what this
all
looks
that,
like.
then that's the sea. And I've never been there.
A Highland Song is a narrative adventure game set in the wilds of the Scottish Highlands. You play as Moira McKinnon, a teenager on her way to the sea for the first time. But to get there, you're going to have to find your way
Okay, so
through the wild
I just looked it up.
mountains and the
For the
valleys.
original
You'll have to
Xbox
survive the
console
weather,
Halo
and
Special
you'll learn a bit
Edition,
about the stories and the history of the Highlands.
the very first one that pops up
Inkle is an independent game
is
studio
$300.
based in the UK, and we specialise in narrative
Used.
games. So we make games in all sorts of genres, but our main focus is on games that tell really strong stories.
Our most famous game is probably 80 Days, an adaptation of Jules Verne's classic novel.
The main hook of 80 Days
And
is that
the
you
one-
can go around the world any
So
way
a
you
used one is like
The way
$300
that
bucks.
Highland Song
And
works is extremely similar
one
to
that's still
80
in the
Days.
box and
You
sealed up
start
and has
in one
everything.
particular point, and you can
So far the lowest
choose
price for
all
that is
sorts of different
$1,000.
routes through the Highlands in order
So-
to reach your goal. But it also ends at a single point because you're trying to reach the lighthouse where your Uncle Hamish lives by the sea.
Yeah, the one for 300
Finding
it
the right gameplay
is
for a game
like
a Highland Song
pre-owned,
can be really difficult. Gameplay is usually
comes
built
with the
around loops
controller
and patterns, but
and the console,
good
and that's like
narratives
it.
aren't made out of
And then the
loops.
sealed one is like
We want to make
the
sure
lowest
that the
price for that
character
is
isn't doing
$1,000.
anything just for the sake of gameplay, but everything the character's doing has to make sense within the narrative.
So the reason that we've essentially created our very first platforming game is that it just makes sense for the character within this
Damn.
scenario to be jumping.
If it
and
was with
scrambling
all
over
the
rocks.
Xbox stuff,
And it even has a
like
rhythm
games,
action
controllers, and all
mechanic.
that, all the
So
extras
in
you
many
had,
ways, it's the most gamey game.
that could have been
that
an
we've
extra
ever
50,
created.
$100 as well.
Moira's platforming abilities in a Highland Song
So, yeah.
are quite realistic. She has a limited amount of time
Whoever
she
got
can
that
climb.
Xbox, they knew they were getting it for a cheap
She gets
price.
hurt if she falls too far.
They knew.
She can rest to recover her strength. She gets affected by weather and affected by nighttime and affected by cold. A lot of our mechanics are built around the tension between knowing where you are and being lost. We have a map mechanic, which is all about that. It's about finding little pockets of knowledge, learning the names of peaks and understanding the history of the peaks to help you
This looks
find
kinda
your way
cute.
through this world.
At Inkle, we've always loved hand-drawn 2D illustration. We love how expressive it can be, especially for characters. Even when we made 3D games, we still had 2D characters because we loved the overall effect.
I love
grew
this.
up in Scotland when I was a teenager. I went up into the Scottish Highlands with 3 friends, and we got lost.
Your brother only
and
bought shit
we had
games
to
for it.
stumble through
Why am I
rivers and
not surprised?
bogs. It was really quite a chilling, scary experience. My parents are art historians, and there was always one painting in particular that they had that I used to love as a child. It had a little ruined castle by a loch and these Scots pine trees and this golden brown colour
God.
palette that was just so characteristic.
Must be wonderful
of
to
the
grow up
region.
somewhere
And
that's
so
actually, you
going
know, beautiful to
for
look at.
a really painterly aesthetic was a way to capture that. The more modern take on that is the digital paintings.
My scenery
of
was,
concept artists such as Paul Scott
you know,
Canavan, who we worked with on this project, and he came up with this
people you
really
wouldn't want in polite
beautiful
company
way
and
of
trash
hand
and
painting rocks and trees and
the occasional
grass,
mountain
and
if you
then
drove for about 2
assembling them
hours.
as a huge collage, but then all built up so that the
Ghost
overall
towns,
effect
you know, the
is
usual.
of a painting coming to life.
When people play a Highland Song, I really want them to come away with a strong sense
Oh
of
yeah,
the
Phoenix, you're
place,
one with nature
the
now.
Highlands
Like, you got
themselves.
friends that are,
There's this
you know,
tension
bears.
in that place between being full of story and history and the marks left behind by people, whether that's ruined farmhouses or whether that's just the names attached to the various peaks and the stories behind those names, which often go back a very, very long way indeed.
When I first kind of conceived of the game, I tried to forget everything about what games we'd made as a studio before, what games are out there, and I just tried to imagine, what do I want on my Switch for me to play right now? And pretty much a Highland song, as the way it looks and feels, popped into my head, and I can't be prouder of what we've created.
Oh my god, Phoenix. you want a bear husband? Add it to your collection.
Co-op is a game studio that's based originally in Montreal, but is now remote and worldwide. It is a cooperative.
Basically, that means that we make all major decisions together. We decide whether we want to work 4 days or 5 days. Spoiler alert, we decided to do 4 days a long time ago.
We present concepts when we are starting to put together things, and we all vote on what we think is what everybody would like to work on.
And you feel more attached to what you're making because you voted for it, you chose it.
It was really important for us to feel like this was a different space where people actually could be the voices behind the games that we make.
We are the makers of some charming, fun games like Winding Worlds and Nog, and the upcoming Goodbye Volcano High.
Goodbye Volcano High
Sorry, I was
is a cinematic
finishing
visual
up my
novel about
miso soup.
dinosaurs in their final year of high school. At the start of the year, they find out that
I am not surprised they chose the 4-day week to work. It's actually been scientifically proven that that's actually the healthiest way to work. Is just
how would you want to go out?
4 days max.
I vote yes. I don't think this is a voting type situation.
I mean, it does kind of belong to all of us. Or it was supposed to.
It does. You did a great job.
So, what do you say, Fang?
We chose dinosaurs for Goodbye Volcano High for a couple of reasons.
Originally, when we presented the game to everybody else, it was meant to
Yeah, I remember this being announced like a while ago.
At the time, this was kind of like the hot thing to work on, was dating sims. And then we were like, hold up. Here's the hook. It's a dating sim with dinosaurs at the end of the world. As soon as you start talking about a meteor, even though the characters are unsure what's going to happen, you know it's going to happen.
And that was really important to us because we wanted to make something that could tap into the anxiety of our current times. And dinosaurs was a really great way to create that metaphor instantly.
As it went on and we became kind of more ambitious and more interested in making what we actually like, we were like, what if it's an anime and we tell a story that isn't necessarily so focused on dating, but really goes deep into the emotional aspects of the end of the world.
My emotions.
So high school already feels like it's the end of the world to most people. So
like it looks like a cute game. It's not really my style of what I would play.
It's really the hope that's
but I support
high school to me
the creativity of it.
That sweet, sweet balance of doom and hope.
Hope for the better future, hope for the dreams we chase and the ambitions we strive for. Those are things that can feel impossible to cling to, especially with something that can't be stopped and feels inevitable, like a giant meteor hitting you.
And communities all across the continent reacted to the news of a previously unknown space object this morning.
So, how do you deal with that?
It starts off very joking. They're kind of making gallows humor jokes.
In light of the whole space rock potential demise of civilization thing,
you hate when people act like dating sims can't have deep stories. Yeah, I mean most of the times the ones you hear about are mostly just like funny or cute. You know, some are thought of as a joke.
Trying to accomplish their dreams before it's too late.
But
others slow down and decide to savor
like this one, it's like a lot of
dreams are.
We can still win.
A lot of dating sims do have like
asteroid
stories, good stories.
The character essentially ends up being the UI, and you end up playing as Fang's inner monologue.
I think this means she's rooting for us?
Music is really important in Goodbye Volcano High, and I would actually say music is really important to our studio and all of our games. It's core to our DNA, and music is central to the identity of the people who make the game, and so it is central to the identity of the game itself and the characters within it.
There's no performance in this game that is separate from the narrative. It is essentially the same as having a scene of dialogue, but you're playing music.
We never climbed, we never fell. We scaled our way out of this water well.
Fang is kind of gearing up for their future.
And see, that shows like it's also just more than just the whole talking to people, see which one you want to date.
Are kind of clashing in their brain for the music they're creating and singing in the game.
I feel like they're trying to explain this genre of game to people who are never going to buy this game.
I think every person hopes that they get to be near people they love and who understand them.
So what you're
and that
saying
love
is they're
them.
dumbing it
Those are
down.
things people
They're
can
trying
grasp no
to,
matter how much time
you
they have
know,
left.
explain to the COD people.
Brave.
Some
Do the
games don't
brave
go
thing
pew pew
and
bang bang.
Love each other and be there for each other, even when it's scary, even when you don't know what's going to happen.
It looks like a cute game. Not my type of game, but it's cute. We support
Bonjour, je suis Julien.
Cute.
Bonjour, je suis Thomas.
Story-driven
Nous sommes les
games.
cofondateurs de Disc et nous sommes ici pour vous parler de Chants of Scénar.
We stand.
Avec Chant of Scénar, nous avons voulu proposer une aventure originale basée sur le mythe de Babel.
On a essayé de vous plonger dans la peau d'un voyageur qui débarquerait dans un pays complètement inconnu.
Tout au long de son ascension, le joueur va rencontrer 5 peuples différents. Chaque peuple a ses propres coutumes, sa propre histoire et évidemment sa propre langue.
Comme chacun de ces peuples parle des langues différentes, ça fait des siècles qu'ils ne se comprennent plus. Une partie du jeu et de l'aventure va consister à comprendre les raisons de cette division et peut-être essayer de rétablir l'harmonie dans la tour. Quand on a compris qu'on voulait travailler sur les langues, on a eu cette idée de s'inspirer de la tour de Babel, parce que c'est un mythe qui est très puissant, qui parle des hommes qui essayaient d'atteindre le ciel en construisant une gigantesque tour. Et ça a des plus hauts dieux qui ont décidé de les frapper d'une malédiction, en leur faisant tous parler une langue différente. Ce qui est important et original dans le jeu, c'est que les langues sont des puzzles en soi. Pour nous, un mot c'est pareil qu'un levier, une porte, une clé. On comprend des langues en résolvant des puzzles, et résoudre des puzzles nous permet de comprendre des langues.
Chant of Scénar est avant tout un jeu d'aventure. Au-delà de l'aspect puzzle, le joueur devra explorer l'environnement, interagir avec différents personnages et participer à des scènes d'action et d'infiltration.
Donc on a eu cette idée de créer un héros qui serait plus un traducteur, un diplomate, un scientifique quelque part, et qui soit dans cette démarche de réconciliation. Le personnage lui-même n'est pas un personnage violent, c'est pas un personnage fort, c'est pas un guerrier. Il va s'en sortir, il va trouver des clés autrement que par la violence. C'est important pour nous de montrer ça, puisque quelque part ce qu'on essaie de montrer dans le jeu, ce qu'on essaie en tout cas de dire dans le jeu, c'est que la violence n'est pas forcément le moyen de tout résoudre.
Kitty.
Les inspirations artistiques du jeu, elles se trouvent principalement dans la bande dessinée européenne des années 70-80, puis plus tard, on a élargi les inspirations du jeu, on a convoqué le brutalisme, l'architecture mauresque, l'architecture indienne, et c'est ce qui nous a permis de créer ce monde un peu pluriel.
Chant of Scénar est une invitation au voyage, à la tolérance et à l'ouverture sur les autres.
D'ordinaire, les langues étrangères sont vues comme un frein. C'est d'ailleurs pour ça qu'on parle de barrière de la langue. Mais dans Chants of Scénar, ce contexte est voué à être dépassé puisque les langues y sont à la fois l'obstacle et la solution. On espère que vous aurez du plaisir à découvrir la tour, à résoudre ses mystères et à nous aider à réunifier ces peuples.
Et évidemment, nous avons hâte d'avoir vos retours.
Okay.
Nightscape is a 2.5D atmospheric adventure game where the ancient Arabian night sky loses its light.
You play as Layla, who is an astronomer who just loves to look at the night sky.
As Layla, players wield a magical astrolabe, restoring stars back to constellations in order to seek a path home. A key stellar cast
that's a
member
cool
is
idea.
the Goat Kid constellation. The Goat Kid decides to accompany Layla in her journey.
These days, people do not know much about constellations and the stories behind them, especially Arabic constellations.
They're different from the Western or the Greek constellations. And so we've had a big research task finding out what those constellations mean, what the backstories are, and finding out how we can turn those ideas into gameplay elements.
Adorable.
The importance
Just
of the
chilling
sky
on that
is
cloud.
having this sky-ground connection. Having Layla use the constellation's abilities to solve puzzles and help with Layla in defeating enemies.
The game being 2.5D, you can actually walk into the screen. There's a lot there that allow them to make the game very cinematic.
This is a brand new experience for me, building a team from the ground up. We found an amazing level designer in Nabil and a coder in Idris. And very recently we found our technical artist in Zaki, and those three are the powerhouse of the studio. And I think is really genuinely amazing that we found those guys who are willing to work with us in Doha. I was very unsure about the amount of talent for making video games in the Middle East. And I think we got super lucky finding the team that we did.
For me, it all starts with a story and
They just
pictures
chilling in the desert,
that
or-
triggers my imagination. It triggered immediately some music in my mind. Beautiful Middle Eastern melodies to take them in, the makams, to combine them with harmonies, Western influences as well, that it comes together as a blend.
In my mind, designing sound is a bit like playing with clay, like trying to model this clay, this sound, manipulate
Yeah,
it.
take promo images somewhere.
For example, the hook
I
shot.
wouldn't mind that job.
is
Listen, we
mostly
gotta
made by
get
a
some
tree
really
branch,
good looking images.
the footstep
Some
of a scorpion
pictures, you know?
walking, which is
Let's take a
mix
trip.
of knife and stone. The voice of the scorpion is my voice, actually. And then overly processed. When the scorpion attack, when the scorpion die, attack, that's my voice.
We're trying really hard to make the game feel magical. Particularly the parts where the player
I think it's
is trying to
cool
figure out the
how they're trying
puzzles.
to like
Being in a country
when a game tries to like
the Philippines
simultaneously
where my hometown had about zero
make it
pollution.
beautiful,
So looking at the
fun,
stars
and
is one of my
educational.
hobbies, which is why Nightscape appealed to me a lot.
I think that's always
There's
a
about
cool goal to
65
have.
million people in the MENA
Which you
region
don't really
who
see a
play
lot
games,
of
and
from the
there's
AAAs,
a very,
so-
very sparse amount of content being developed from within. We want to push that boundary, and we want to create fun and meaningful games with the Middle East in mind, utilizing its culture and rich traditions and history to really inspire ideas for games going forward.
It looks
And
beautiful.
ultimately build a bridge towards understanding the Middle East better.
Nightscape.
Is the world too much, or is it just
Stray
me?
Gods.
Everything I set upon unravels at my feet.
Have I seen this before?
Everything I've learned wasted.
I'm gonna have to wait to see if they show any more. This looks kind of familiar.
To be free.
The games industry is always absolutely convinced that we can only be this and this only until someone comes along and proves them wrong.
Stray Gods is a role-playing musical where you control the song. You play as Grace, a college dropout who's not quite sure what to do with her life.
A woman living in the modern world who encounters the last of the Greek muses,
Calliope?
who dies in her arms, passes on her powers, and Grace discovers that the Greek gods are alive and well and hidden in the modern world.
Damn.
We think that Stray Gods kind of appeals beyond just fans of video games. It's a really unique story.
You
and
here
unique
for this, Phoenix?
experience.
There are so many elements that go
This-
into this game to
this
make it
hitting your
special
buttons?
that you can attach to any one of them and have an incredible experience.
Stray Gods is what we call a role-playing musical. It's not really a genre that's ever existed before.
You say you didn't kill
Role-playing
Calliope.
musical.
You have 1 week to prove it. What do I do?
Start singing.
This is a game with branching musical numbers where the key decisions in the story are made in musical numbers that change depending on your choices.
Lost girls, lost girls.
The way that we tackle music is one that people have never seen before.
Boarding,
You love musical, Phoenix? Wow, I would have never guessed.
That should link up to each other. There's a lot of
For
considerations
people that
to factor in.
don't understand, that was
Complicated, but
sarcasm, by the
It feels
way.
very worth it in the end.
Perfectly fine on her own.
We got to work with some of the best, the most talented voice actors in the world, the most talented people on Broadway. Like, what more could you ask for, really?
Being able to work with some champions
would be
like
cool.
Austin Wintry, David Gator, Tribeca has
You don't really hear that a lot in the gaming industry.
To our composer, Austin. He works some kind of dark magic, and you get it all back, and you're like, don't know how you transformed that take into this, but it's absolutely amazing.
It's like, yeah, I'm working on a game, so I have to go to Broadway right now. Gotta go hang out with the
Such
Broadway
incredibly
peeps.
complex, thoughtful characters in this game. Every single character in the game has the potential to be a favorite.
My favorite character is Eros. I really love Aphrodite. I think she is beautiful.
Oh no, that's too hard of a question.
My favorite character is, I think, Orpheus.
My king, Orpheus. He's my favorite. It used to be Hermes, but Orpheus, emo king, love.
Look at me, who do you think I am? I'm saying Medusa. I am the #1 Medusa fan in the office.
I love Medusa, and I love Persephone, and I adore Freddie. But my favorite?
I reckon my favorite character is Freddie.
I'm really gonna go against the grain here. My
Soundtrack
favorite
is
character is
gonna be
Freddy.
so good.
Everybody's gonna say Freddy, so I thought
Yeah.
I'd say someone else.
I mean,
as
when
well.
when the main focus is singing
no,
and
I'll say
music in
Freddie,
general, and
but Medusa.
they be hanging out with the Broadways, the Broadways peeps.
Sorry.
There is a level of belief in the studio in
You can't
the
screw that
themes
up.
in this game and the stories
Yeah.
that it's trying to tell and the people it's trying to involve and the people it's trying to talk to that I haven't seen on a lot of the games that I've worked on in my career.
We've assembled this superstar group of people. It is a Voltron of game development.
Early on, Liam made a conscious effort to make sure that everyone that we hired culturally fit, but also had a conscious effort to make sure that we weren't hiring the same kind of people.
Every single person who came onto this project brought something wholly and uniquely theirs.
It's one thing to be able to hire to have diverse voices. It's also another thing to make sure that those voices are heard. It's just important for us that everyone, one, feels safe enough to share their opinion, and two, diverse enough that
This game
many
does well.
opinions
Me
are shared from
too.
all sorts of walks of life.
At the end of the day,
It's
gaming
definitely
is about
unique.
joy, and I really like being reminded that making games can also be about joy.
Damn. Yeah. I think a lot of game devs need to be reminded of that, because they just get overworked, underpaid, and forgotten about these days when it comes to like the main AAA industry, which is why there's like so many independent studios these days. It's like a lot of these game devs need to be reminded it can be fun to make a game.
The Expanse is an exceptional intellectual property in that it's huge and that the characters are the forefront of what they are focusing on.
What is so compelling about
What
it
is
is that
this?
it works in several different mediums, right? I mean, we began with the books. And then I think what was so special about the television show was that it was almost like just another window of looking in at this same story.
So what's unique about the way that
Why
we
did
tell
she look
stories
so
is that we
familiar?
give our players agency over the character they're playing, which basically means that their choices shape the overall story, so they're actually living in
This
the
is the
story as
Expanse
opposed to
game?
just
I don't know what
following
that
along
is.
with it.
When you're adapting a television property into
Oh,
a
it's a
video game
television
property, you have to
show.
think about what the
Okay.
fan is
I don't know what it-
expecting and what they're coming into.
Yeah.
This takes place years before the first season. We're getting to see the world through Kamina Drummer's eyes. She is a belter, somebody who's out in deep space and has grown up there. Has
Yeah, I
never
don't
set
know what
foot
the
on a
Expanse
planet,
show-
so her
the
perspective
Expanse
is really different.
Show
It's
is
hard for me to
about
look at these moons without thinking about the Earther research colonies exploiting all the resources on them and giving nothing to the belt.
I hoped to portray her, especially at the beginning of the video game, as a little bit more vulnerable and open, and just see the events that cause her to harden.
Just like Ceres. Bossing everyone around, only this time no dolls to keep you on the leash, yeah?
really awesome character like Drummer deserves to have really interesting situations to be put in that fans have come to expect from the show. And now it's like they're getting to play an episode of The Expanse, but in video game form. We can do things like put
Haven't they
zero G in
tried
the
something
game. We have to think
like this
about it
before?
from what's a good
But it didn't
interaction
really
medium.
do too
And
well.
changing that from what you may have seen in the show slightly to make sure that it's something that you can grok immediately and that feels
I remember
good on
like
the
there was
sticks,
another
but
TV
that
show
is
I didn't
also
watch, and they made a
representative
video
of what
game
you
where
see in
you
the
like
show.
you were supposed to play along with it.
Those characters have really complex issues that they're facing regularly. And in narrative games, we want to give players these gray areas to really think, is this the answer I wanted to choose, or do I want to choose this answer? And that they both have their upsides and their downsides. And so The Expanse is perfect for that.
Drummer, his suit is punctured and losing pressure. You need to release the vault and patch him now, or he could die.
Game of Thrones one. Oh yeah, I remember that. Didn't it flop hard?
Has O2, fuel,
Or am I thinking of something else?
we can't afford to lose it.
It was a really interesting challenge to come at the same character in a completely different medium.
Deck 9 is a video game studio. We are known for our narrative, our characters, and our motion capture technology.
It's a completely blank white room. You've got some tape on the floor, maybe a few things made out of wire to show where a door frame might be or something like that, but otherwise it's pure imagination.
I assume you didn't come here to talk about crystals.
We have a new target.
What is it this time, El Dorado? The Fountain of Youth? Let me guess. The Falcon Horde of Venus?
The UNN Urshanabi. Cap believes there's something valuable on board.
Something that we are really excited for people to experience in the Expanse of Telltale series is the emotional performance that we're getting from our actors that comes through with our technology and from our animators that really bring out the personality in these characters.
So you were basically playing as like throwaway characters no one cared about,
Believe me, I'm well aware.
and you had no emotional attachment to them.
Make sure you're not having second thoughts about our deal.
Oh, come on. We're equal partners. We pay the crew, the costs, and the overhead.
The rest is 50-50. You and me.
I mean, that's the joy and the beauty of a job like this, is that I get to play.
We're hoping that you form these bonds with these characters and that they are something that you
Well, I
carry
never
with you
watched
after you're done
Game of
playing the
Thrones
game
or
and
any
you're
of them,
thinking
but
about it later. That to me is always a testament.
most of the
of
characters died
good
anyway.
storytelling is, am I
That kind of
thinking
sounds on
about
point.
it long after I experienced the game itself.
But that's just from like the memes and stuff I've seen online. I never watched Game of Thrones, so.
I am Julian Cordero, and I'm the lead developer and programmer in Despelote. Despelote is a game about soccer, and it's a slice-of-life adventure game set in 2001, when Ecuador was really close to qualifying to the World Cup for the first time. Everybody was incredibly excited about this moment, and you see it through the eyes of an 8-year-old kid kicking a ball around with your friends.
This is
in the
an
park.
interesting art style.
When I was growing up, I played a lot of soccer. In Ecuador, the culture of soccer is very big, and if you're a boy and you're not playing soccer, it's like hard to make friends. It's a lot of like my
One of the main threats
best
to him
friends
was
I
also a
made
major
were
villain in the
through playing
actual
soccer.
show, so you couldn't
But
do
then
anything
when I
to
moved
him.
to the US,
Then what
I
was the
wasn't really
point?
watching or playing soccer for a
That
few
sounds
years.
really
That sort of
pointless to
made
me.
me like take a step back from
You
it.
couldn't even give
I
him
sort
like
of realized this, and I was like, oh, like this had such a big role in my
killable
life. I wanted to
villain,
make
or-
this game to sort of like figure out what it was that was really interesting about soccer growing up. When I started making the game, the first thing I focused on was this like relationship with the ball, and like making the ball like this physical object that you're kicking around. More than like creating like a soccer match, I knew that I wanted to just like your relationship with the ball and like how that sort of then relates to your environment. Immediately was thinking, okay, what should it look like? And there was this artist and musician, Sebastian. I really liked his work.
My name is Sebastián Balbuena, and I am in charge of the art in Despelote. That includes 2D animation, 3D modeling, and also the music. This is actually the first video game I have ever worked in.
I knew the game was going to be in 3D because I wanted the game to be like feel very physical and this like the physical connection with the ball.
We wanted to find a graphic style that could communicate emotions, and we found that the 2D hand-drawn animation was the best way to do that.
We developed like the art style sort of around like his previous work, and his style sort of feels very nostalgic to us to have these like backgrounds with this like very grainy aesthetic. That was just very important to have that dynamic. The background being so noisy, the characters being so like hand-drawn and like so clean. As soon as like I was like, okay, well, what's the setting for this game? Like the only really idea I had was like where I have played soccer in my life, which is in Quito. That's where the game sort of had to be set. It became really important for us to like capture Quito in a way that was like very true to us. So we're using a lot of pictures, and the buildings are all real buildings.
Some of the voices are from people that we knew. We wanted to have the same feeling that you get when you listen to people's conversation in the street. So that's why we went with the improvisation for the dialogue.
It's all improvised, really. We like approached a lot of friends and family in Ecuador. The parents are played by my own parents, so there's an interesting dynamic happening there as you run around as a kid. The scene we set is it's 2001. Ecuador is just coming out of this big economic crisis, and there's this idea we can qualify to the World Cup, and that's like really exciting. And it's been great because I think it's bringing in a lot of this like sort of communal understanding of the moment. So my parents aren't really big soccer people, but the excitement of qualifying to the World Cup was so big that even they were really excited about it.
Oiga, ya está jugando el Ecuador, vamos a ver. Todo el mundo está hablando de que este sí hay chance.
Capturing this moment in time was important because I think for my generation, the first time we qualified to the World Cup, it sort of meant like, oh, Ecuador is a tiny little country, but all of a sudden we were like in the world stage, and we were like playing against Italy, and like we were like
that would be exciting,
in the big
yeah.
newspapers, and that felt like a really big thing. Pelota in Spanish means ball. And despelote is sort of a saying that people have. It's like, esto está hecho un despelote, is like, this is a mess. So it's sort of like a play on words, like ball and like mess. We're growing up with this idea of si se puede, which is what the people chant to the soccer team, which means, yeah, we can do it. Si se puede and si se pudo, like we can do it, and we already did it. Like that's not something my parents were able to like grow up with. People like grasp onto it so much, and I think it like really gave a lot of people so much hope. And I think for me, like that being like one of my earliest memories, it sort of made me grow up thinking like, oh yeah, like yes, we can. I hope that people really enjoy just running around in Quito. I think we've built it in a way that is based on a lot of our memories.
Style is definitely unique.
Like trying to recreate it directly one-to-one. It's more of like a fuzzy memory, and I hope that feels very like transportive for people, and they can experience what this moment in time in Ecuador was and how I felt through that time.
Okay. That's pretty cool. You can play exclusive demos. Well, that was pretty cute. How long was that? Was that like... Is that like 30 minutes, 40 minutes or something like that? Alright.